Mike Mills, a friend of mine from the Booking the Territory podcast. Good guy. He does
he's doing the Smoky Mountain recap show by show.
He is. And it's really interesting stuff. I listened to it. I was a guest on one of those shows, but here's his question, Jim. Although we haven't aired it yet, I've been getting tons of questions sent to us about Smoky Mountain episode 32 from September 5th, 1992, where Jim Cornette pulls out a spray can of ether. Jim, what is actually in the can that you spray on the towel that you use to knock Bobby Fulton out? By the way, the Heavenly Bodies Fantastic Feud is tremendous during the first 6 and 7 months of Smoky Mountain.
Thank you. And now a bunch of fucking Ring of Honor fans just heard ether and went, oh God, because they hated it. They just despised it. When the Briscoes and Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin settled their World Tag Title match in Ring of Honor when Haas and Benjamin used ether on, I believe it was Mark Briscoe, and put him out. And the internet just exploded. Oh, how dare they do a finish like that? That's just so hokey, blah, blah, blah. For one thing, it actually is ether, by the way. I'll tell you about that in a second. But for another thing, every time we had used ether, we started a riot. I remember hitting more people with that can than I've sprayed and spraying them in the face for real, trying to get them off of me as we would try to get back from the ring. Because they're just, yes, it's corny, but when people took wrestling seriously, there's just something so dastardly about it. When Dr. Ken Ramey managed the interns, he'd pull out and spray the ether. Or that's the way that, for example, we beat Batista when he was Leviathan in Ohio Valley Wrestling to send him to the full-time roster. The only way the undefeated monster could be beaten was John Cena, as a matter of fact, the prototype. Put him out with ether. It was a classic wrestling finish. And of course, the modern day, Spot Monkey fans just despised it because nobody did a flip. But when you think about it, how much heat does that get on a heel? And Jay Briscoe said in the promo in Ring of Honor after the fact, you tried to drug my brother, just to win a wrestling match. You could have killed him. Anyway, it's ether. You go to the auto store. I'll tell this now, since probably nobody's ever going to do it again. You go to the auto parts store and you buy a can of that aerosol engine starting fluid. It has an ether base. It smells just like ether. And if you actually spray it on the cloth and put it over motherfucker's face, especially if he's blown up and sucking wind, you will, at the very least, make him violently ill and potentially render him unconscious. But so a bunch of fucking outlaw wrestlers don't go out and start doing this now and kill each other. Let me explain to you that you have to have a little coordination. You have the can tucked in the back of your pants, and you have the towel in your jacket pocket. When you whip the towel out, you palm it, you grab it in the middle. When you bring the can out, you spray the lower half up over your head so that everybody sees you spraying it. And then when you throw the can down, you flip the towel that hasn't been sprayed over the top of that, and you put it on this fucker's face, and you hopefully tell him to hold his breath because it's still going to make him sick. And hopefully it won't cause brain damage. And then he goes out in a few short moments, and then you grab your can and you roll the fuck out of there. And at one time in Mid-South, when we did it with the Fantastics in Jackson, Mississippi, not only did I have to spray a few fuckers in the face with that thing and bean 3 of them that tackled us, but once we got out back to the locker room, and we were blown up and beat up and the cops dumped us off, they had to drag Tommy Rogers because it was so hot in the building that night that he hadn't been able to hold his breath. The cops had to run back and grab Tommy and take him out the back door and lay him out where they had the cattle chutes to get fresh air because he was about ready to puke. And he's staying there getting the fresh air. The cops are telling us, don't change. Just let's get you in the car and get you guys out of here because people are coming around the building. So as the people come around the building from the front of the Jackson Coliseum there at the fairgrounds, they see Tommy Rogers laying in a cattle chute out back and puking in this 95-degree Jackson, Mississippi heat. And they see me in the Midnight Express because he's right at the back door having to step over his body while the cops escort us to our car. And they got us in the car and told us, fucking drive, right? And held the people back because they wanted to kill us. Not only did we drug him and beat him, but we stepped over his prone body on the way to our car. Oh God, I loved heat like that when we lived and got back to the hotel or whatever afterwards.
My favorite ether angle is, I talked about this recently on a super podcast, 605pod.com. And it's in Georgia in 1980. It's Alexis Smirnoff and Ivan Koloff against Kevin Sullivan and Tony Atlas. And they ether Tony Atlas. And as they're carrying him away, like right in front of the camera, they go back to Gordon at the desk and you just see Atlas's prone body being carried away. Gordon brings over a group of fans. There's an old lady, there's a couple of kids, there's all sorts of different fans there. And he's interviewing the fans. Well, what did you see? And this woman's like, I am a nurse and it was ether. And then the kid's like, it was ether. It was ether. Like, all of a sudden, everyone's an expert in the smell of ether. But it was so effective because you got the fans involved.
And like Lance Russell was perfect to get it over. And Jim Ross has done the same thing because at first you detected and the announcer goes, wait a minute, what's that smell? It smells like a hospital. What? Wait, that's ether. Oh my! And then by then it's wafted over there. And also the thing is, you throw the towel out in the crowd because it does smell like ether. And if they take a big honk of it, as a matter of fact, oh my God, Joe Koff was petrified. He didn't want us to throw the towel out in the crowd because he was afraid Sinclair Broadcasting would be liable if one of the fans actually put another. I said, nobody's going to stand there and hold it against the motherfucker's face so long, nor are they going to allow that. The person it's being held on to go out, for fuck's sake. But we could. But you throw, and that way it gives it more legitimacy when you throw that towel out there. And I've done it, and so is I think Bolin did it too. You throw the towel out in the crowd, and they'll throw it back toward the referee as evidence. Look what he did. Anyway, that's another one of those things in wrestling you can't do anymore. It makes it no fun. My promos, by the way, for 6 months, I was known as the Ether Bunny in Mid-South Wrestling. The Ether Bunny struck again.